In-body body fat percentage is 7.2% to 11.6%. With pictures, same person. My gym used to have an in-body scale for which one had to make an appointment for. Think the in-body is the in-body 270, the one that stands here on the left, that now stands in my gym for self-service for a few months now. So I have been taking weekly measurements along with a picture that I take at home in the morning with minimum daily weight shortly after waking up, after morning toilet, before drinking, before eating. The in-body scale, apart from body composition, feature on my Garmin Galaxy Watch 4, results varying in my experience, even with multiple measurements within minutes. My body fat scale no longer sells similar listing. Mine is from brand Comtron and works with an app called FeelFit, but now also with an app called Renfo. My now second body fat scale from Garmin switched mostly to have body composition in Garmin Connect, using Garmin Connect as prototype for the One Fitness platform. Also tracking my strength training with the watch. Also daily updated weight for body weight adjusted VO2 max estimates. The in-body seems to be the one that probably is able to approximate actual body composition the most. It also has 4 to 8% lower body fat percentages values compared to measurements on both fairly similar in the results, both weight and body fat percentage bioimpedance home scales. So this might also be due to the reason that this has handles, whereas my bioimpedance scale has not. So maybe I'm carrying additional fat in my lower body that is basically not measured. Or the more fat in my lower body is measured basically on a bioimpedance scale because the current goes through my legs mostly, and then if we have an additional current that also goes through the upper body, then the average for the body fat, for the total body fat, then might be lower. Therefore, these pictures from in-body scans along with the body percentage results. The pictures are taken each on Saturday morning, close after weighing on my home scale, in same conditions as above described minimum daily weight measurements with same lighting, all relaxed apart from upright posture but not flexed, apart from one which I saw when I added this. So first of all, we take a look at the in-body history. So we can see the basal metabolic rate, it went a little bit up and down. Then we can also see the weight has fluctuated from 77.6 and then it went up, and then now it currently is at 75 as of the last measurement, as of the last Saturday. The muscle mass went up it went up and down. And actually the starting value in 2023 in April, and not in April but in March, even though I think the in-body has kind of the American date, so this might be March or April, I'm not exactly sure. It went a little bit up and a little bit down. So basically, it seems somewhat unchanged, one could say. There is no overarching trend now over the time span of 1 year and maybe 4 or 5 months. The body fat mass is now in the second picture, which we can see here. So it began from 7.9 kilograms in the first measurement on April or March 23. Then it went a little bit up, a little bit down, which, because this is only a one-time measurement, one time a week, and because of the potential weight fluctuations might not mean that much, I would say. And now it seems to be at 6.3, but well, the body fat seems to be the most important thing the scale actually can measure. So basically the weight and the body fat. All the other metrics seem to be not that useful, and only extrapolations based on these two main metrics, body fat mass as well as the weight. Therefore, the body fat percentage seems to be the most useful thing. Also, it is significantly harder to get to a low body fat percentage with less muscle mass compared to having higher muscle mass, because, well, if you have higher muscle mass and the same absolute body fat, then you have a resulting lower body fat percentage, which also has to be said. So people without resistance training might not be able to have a body fat percentage with being very low while still looking somewhat healthy. That's maybe also something to keep in mind. In the body fat summary, or now this is just an additional graph, so basically it represents the weight over this period. So again, we start out with April, or it's probably is, I don't know which way it is. Usually I would say this would be 2024, and then the European arrangement is that then the month follows and then the date, but here it is the other way around. So this is probably the month, so it is in March, and then we can see that it went up and down, and now we are currently at 75, or I am currently at 75 kilograms. Now further going along with the text, I have a few data points before weekly measurements since I made a few appointments before self-service availability. Further details, I try to take the in-body measurements at the gym in ideally the same state as pictures and morning weight. But due to opening times of gym, due to shifting schedule, hunger, hydration, some measurements were with then ideally only fluid intake or with food powder to minimize weight altering effects, hydration and food difference. So in the last couple of weeks, whenever I then had to go, basically I couldn't go to the gym because I was already up a few hours earlier, then I tried to eat not that much food that would be too heavy. So I tried to basically eat only hydrate plus food powder, as I mentioned there. But now here, height was fluctuating from 181 centimeters to 183, with 183 being basically the upper range of, or the somewhat, so 182 point something is I think 6 inch, and so 183 is slightly maybe a 2 or 3 millimeters above this. Measured after arrival at gym for several weeks with device attached to scale in changing rooms. If picture and in-body scans not on same day, a comment added. Only in more recent pictures began leaning against wall to standardize camera distance and resulting distortion. Before I used 1.5 zoom less distance to mirror, now use 2 times zoom back to wall, which I will discuss when seeing the pictures. Physical state, resistance training on schedule 3 to 3.5 times per week, apart from injury, in the age range of 12 to now 27. Running VO2 max estimates from Samsung Health and Garmin last 12 months went from 54 to 58. 2020, there I started to wear a Galaxy Watch Active 2, not the Galaxy Watch 4, beginning with 54 milliliters per kilogram per minute Samsung estimate. And what has been mentioned, I think that before I also was lower in weight. I still had been doing resistance training since age 12 or maybe also 11. I'm not exactly sure about this, but because I was lower in weight, the VO2 max per kilogram per minute probably was a little bit higher, I assume, compared to the 54. So maybe I already had a somewhat similar VO2 max. Current resting heart rate yearly average is 49. So here we can see the Garmin running VO2 max estimate. Here we can see how it over time, over the last 6 months, developed. Garmin does not have a 12 months time scale. Then we can also see the weight on a Garmin. So this is the weight. It went basically up and down. These are the daily measurements. And I only had the Garmin Index S2 for the last couple of months. But before I already had weight measurements that I imported over MyFitnessPal. We can also see the blood pressure. This is now also a year of data. I have a little bit of data before. I also switched to mostly morning readings, which might have skewed the data a little bit. So before in the greens I used to do, so there might be a correlation with being in the green zones, especially in the beginning, and measuring in the morning as well as the evening. So therefore the average might be lower for a given day. Now history from Samsung Health, only one run. This is now also VO2 max history from Samsung Health, and I only have the screenshot with 46.7 milliliters per kilogram as of the last run of maybe a couple of weeks ago, where I additionally to my Garmin also tracked the run on a Galaxy Watch 4. But this went basically then down to even 42, 43 over the last couple of years. So basically going back until we arrive at the high point when I started wearing the watch with 54. Now, here are the scans, each date in scan. So we see the date in the beginning of the scan here. And then we can also see, well, from that is it, we cannot see this, but this is from present to past. So this goes from now till basically the last couple of months. And also I have a couple of measurements, as I mentioned already, from 2023. So first of all, we now take a look at this picture. Now these are standardized. I am going back against the back of the wall, and I take these pictures in the morning, as I already mentioned, under these conditions. And I now am using a 2 times zoom. So basically my Galaxy S10 has a 2 times zoom lens, which I am then zooming in. And because I'm standing against the back of the wall, the distortion as well as the lighting and other factors are as minimal, so basically as standardized as I can get it. Of course, sometimes I might have a slightly different position. In the later measurements, we then see that I was not leaning against the wall, and I used a 1.5 times zoom. Some pictures were missing, 2 or 3 or 4, and I inserted basically the closest match to these pictures. So first of all, we start out with a body fat percentage of 8.4, which we can see here on the left, and then we can see the picture on the right. What is also noticeable is that well, there is actually not that much noticeable. And it also might be sometimes the case that a higher body fat percentage actually looks better compared to a lower body fat percentage, which might be due to a variety of reasons. In my experience, the InBody scale at the gym, if I basically have the same body composition, but I drink a little bit more water, then it still measures, from basically my thinking, it still measures the same amount of fat, so then it over-interprets basically my muscle mass, which then might basically skew this ratio and result in a slightly lower body fat percentage, even though then the look itself might indicate basically a higher body fat percentage compared to what the scale then would say. So I think this might be one of the reasons why sometimes it looks a little bit off. So then we go into the next picture, which is now the first picture was from the 27th of July, which we can see here. This was last Saturday. Then we also have a Saturday, the 20th of July. We have a body fat percentage of 7.2%. We can also take a look at the other measurements as well, but maybe not in every single picture. So we can first of all see the weight. So here it is 77.9. It also shows the deviation from the last measurement. Then it also shows the skeletal muscle mass, but as we already saw, the trend over now 1.5 years approximately does not show basically a trend at all. So maybe I'm either stagnating or the measurement accuracy is just too little, or too little to make any interpretation from this. The body fat mass seems to then go up and down according basically with or along with the percent body fat, but of course it also depends kind of on the weight. Now we also have the abdominal obesity analysis, which you might already have seen. It goes from visceral fat level 1 to 3, and so we have a little bit of range also there. And we also have the BMR, which maybe is not as interesting. So then we go into the second picture, or the third picture already. So the second picture, if I just skipped it too fast, it looks like this. So now I will find a view in which I just read the body fat percentage, then the comparison might actually be a little bit better. Of course, the hairstyles and the beard styles also might slightly vary, as well as the facial positions. Now we go into the next picture, which is taken from 13th of July 2024, and we have a body fat percentage of 7.6. Then we go into the next picture, which is missing. We have a body fat percentage of 7.7%, and this is the picture I have from after training at the gym. So I go at the gym, then I weigh myself before the training in order to avoid basically blood in my muscles and to basically approximate the ideal morning state with the minimum weight still. I also try to not drink and eat before, but sometimes that's due to scheduling not possible. So here I have the picture from afterwards. The timestamp basically of this here is not the timestamp. So the timestamp here is not identical because I imported these measurements from my gym. So the timestamp here does not make sense. Only the date stamp makes sense. Whereas the timestamp here of the pictures, these are the actual timestamps. Then we go into the next picture. We also might do an overview basically of all the pictures because, well, it's not that many pictures, and then one might see a little bit better of a comparison. I could have put them maybe next to each other, but then it would have not been basically a post with going in this direction, because it would have mostly been one table. Now we go into the next one, which is a body fat percentage of 7.9. According to this, what I already mentioned is that the Garmin Index S2, as well as any other bioimpedance scale without handles, has my body fat percentage estimated usually 4 to maybe 8% higher. And so there on my previous scale, actually, there is also an athlete mode, which then estimates the body fat percentage lower, but I deactivated this in order to basically just have the standardized measurement, which is influenced not so much by me, so I reduced this as a decision variable. Then we go into, so these are all 1 week apart usually. So we have here the 29th of June, and it also loads a bit, and then we go into 1 week before. And this is now also Saturday, and then we see here that it is 9.6. But here the image might be slightly differently zoomed in if it actually loads again. Too many pictures in OneNote. So then we go into 15th of June at 8.7% body fat. Then we have 8.0 body fat percent at the 8th of June. Then we have the 1st of June with now 8.5 body fat percent. Then we have again a picture after training, so standardized picture missing due to time constraints while traveling. These picture series I take after each workout in the gym with varying pump due also to due also to taking these pictures after cardiovascular training, and fourth, resistance or bodyweight training, not only standardized 3 times per week whole body training, which then would result in a somewhat similar pump. We again can see the timestamp of the picture. So the timestamp of the picture is the 24th of, in this case, already May. So we already are in May because the previous picture already was the 1st of June. So then we go into this picture, which also has a different timestamp, the picture. Maybe because I also was traveling. So we have the 17th of May here, and this is a body fat percentage of 8.2, and we have the picture from the day after. Then we also have a picture from the day after, and we have a body fat percentage of 9.8. Then I've also a picture taken the day after, and now we also see that I am beginning to not lean back against the wall. So this is the last picture I think I have, or these are already also not against the back of the wall. I only began to introduce this recently, as I already mentioned. Now we take a look at the next picture, which should be this year, the 10th of May, and this was also taken the day after with 9.8, or maybe I had that already. Then here again, picture taken the day after. I also colored my beard and slightly my hair at this point in time to kind of match my hair. And then we have 10.7% already, but we don't necessarily see the change here, but the change becomes apparent in kind of later pictures. So this is basically the average change, one could say, which is sometimes caught in these pictures, sometimes not, is then visible in the later pictures, one could say. Then we again have a picture taken from 2 days before actually, and this is the 4th of April, which now is basically on the closing to the end of this series already. We have 11% body fat, and I would say the change from here to now the later pictures here is somewhat clearly visible, especially the ones on the very lower side as of the last recent pictures. Now we go back, and then we only have 1 or 2 pictures left. So we already had the 5th of April, so now we go back here, and then we have the 22nd of April. The one before was the 10.7%. We also had the 9.8% already. So now the 11%. Then we have the 12th of April with 11.6%. Then here I again am missing the picture. I take these pictures after in order to also capture my legs, but this takes a little bit of time since I usually have bags in front of the mirror, which I then have to remove. So we have here 9.5%, which is also including the legs, and as is clearly visible, especially my upper legs hold quite a little bit of body fat. Then picture from before weekend traveling, so the picture is taken the day 3 days before, and then after I traveled over the weekend, I then took on Monday, I think, the body fat analysis, which is also visible here. It says Monday, but I won't zoom in because otherwise the pictures again will be gone. So here we have 9.2%, and then here it is clearly visible that my body looks slightly different. Now this could be due to water retention, but in this case I think it's mostly fat. So we can see that the 9.9% body fat percentage and also the ones before. So we are now in a range which is not 7 or 8 or 9%, but it is more like 9 or 10 or 11%, and this clearly shows in the pictures, as also my abs begin to not show. So here, for example, we can see that there are only 6 abs visible, whereas and this is relaxed, and we can see in the other pictures that basically the next array of abs becomes slightly visible, which is also not that visible, as I am beginning to notice here. So we only have kind of the 3 sections. Actually, we don't see the next section in any of the picture clearly visible, at least in a relaxed state. So then we go into already the last picture here. So we have 2 pictures left. The first one, this one is from the 18th of December in 2023. So now this is multiple years back already. So 2023 is now this case, or it's actually not that long ago. It's only 6, 7, 8 months ago, and this is now, the picture is also taken from 2 days before, so 2 days before here. Then, so we can also see that first of all, the head position changes slightly in the pictures, depending on how much I tilt my head back, and this makes then the torso look bigger or smaller in relation to the head, but also the more hair one has, or in this case me, and Also my beard has the smaller the torso looks compared to the head, and also the higher in body fat one is, the bigger the head also appears, because well, it is just bigger as it has more subcutaneous fat. Now we take a look at the last picture, which is slightly posed, not only slightly posed, but I usually try to do this pose in order to also kind of see my lats on the picture. In this case we have it a little bit exaggerated, and so here we have 10.2% body fat with the date being the 3rd of April, then, if this is correct. So we again take a look at all of the pictures from basically present to past, and I might again just read the body fat percentages, which I might already or should have done maybe in the beginning, but of course in my eyes at least it made sense to also basically insert or input the caveats in the beginning, and also the context in the beginning for these pictures. So here we have 8.4%, here we have 7.2%, here we have 7.6%, here we have 7.7%, here we have 7.9%, here we have 9.6%, here we have 8.7%, here we have 8.0%, here we have 8.5%, here we have 9.0%, here we have 8.2%, here we have 9.8%, here we have 10.7%, here we have 11.0%, here we have 11.6%, here we have 9.5%, here we have 9.2%, here we have 9.9%, here we have 10.4%, here we have 10.2%, and that's it. I took a look at my genetic potential also, which I also wanted to include here to provide some further context. How close am I to my genetic potential? I took a test on Menno Henselmann's website, which was an FFMI test, and I based this test on my yearly average body fat measured on the now Garmin S2 in order to also provide maybe a bigger incentive, but I'm not exactly sure what this result would be if I basically insert that at my given weight currently I'm at a higher body fat percentage. I did have to measure circumference on multiple positions, so this was the ankles as well as my wrists, as well as my torso, as well as something else. We can actually take a look at the measurement if the image here is high resolution enough, but I cannot zoom in that much. So here we can see, for example, what is your current body fat percentage. I put in the yearly average of 15.9 in order to have an average measurement, which then ideally increases in accuracy. Then what is your desired body fat percentage? 5, I just input 5. What is your height? 183. Then what is your waist circumference? 17. What is your ankle circumference? 22.4. So I took, usually I think the higher value so I measured both left and right, and I then took the higher value. And what is your torso circumference? 99.8. What is your upper arm circumference? 32.5. What is your forearm circumference? 28.6. What is your neck circumference? 37.1. And what is your calf circumference? 39.1. In terms of if a muscle was measured, I took the lower measurement, and if the wrist was measured, where basically the subcutaneous fat would be the thing that is somewhat measured, then I would take the higher measurement in order to provide a more conservative approach to the results, one could say, or at least to the input. We can then see that the lean body mass left to gain. This is now basically on the upper range because I inserted the Garmin Index S2 measurement compared to the measurement of body fat, which I could also have averaged somehow from the in-body scale. So basically, if I input it like this, there is more left to gain because, well, it thinks that I don't have that much muscle mass, and it basically estimates the fat mass I have if I input basically a higher body fat percentage, even though I know that the in-body scale would give me a lower body fat percentage. I think at least that's how it goes. So the lean body mass left to gain would be 13.4 kilograms. The fat mass left to lose would be 8.3, which is also clearly visible that I have lots of basically absolute fat, at least in my midsection, which is also fairly visible and noticeable when I run, especially when I sprint. Now, in terms of how this looks like in terms of over and underdeveloped, so there is this analysis that basically says how much it is over and underdeveloped. So my neck apparently is 5% overdeveloped, upper arm 10% underdeveloped, the thigh, and this is also something I can somewhat confirm, my upper arms are not necessarily good, as you also saw in the pictures. The thigh 4% underdeveloped, then the calf 6% overdeveloped, maybe due to genetics. Also forearm seems to be perfect, so basically at 100%, and the torso seems also to be overdeveloped. Maybe, I don't know, I trained lots of upper body in the beginning of my training, also maybe due to basically aesthetics, and I did not really care that much or trained my legs that heavy. I also didn't have the equipment at the time. I trained at a home gym for basically most of my career, but of course it's not a career. But at age 12 to, let's say, 2022, I did not have access to a gym. Never did I visit a gym apart from maybe the school gym, which I visited maybe 1 to 3 times. We can also then see basically this, how it looks like in terms of the centimeters. So the torso achieved 92%. The maximum would be 109 centimeters. The upper arm would be maximally 40 centimeters, the forearm maximally 32 centimeters, the neck maximally 39 centimeters. So basically these are now the max ranges, which are not basically the ideal proportions. It seems to be like this, or I don't know. Achieved 80. I think if it's green, then it's ideal, but I don't know. The thigh here, 61.6 centimeters. Then we have the calf with the max value of 40.8 centimeters. And this would put my maximum natural body weight at 83.4, which is still quite a little bit. So I targeted at 80 in the last couple of weeks, months, even years, in terms of inputting this into Samsung Galaxy Health, and not in Samsung Galaxy Health, but in Samsung Health, you can input basically a goal, which I set to 5% and 80 kilograms, which seems not to be that much off. I also had the muscle mass goal, but I got rid of it as of yesterday, as I saw that you didn't have to put this in, which then means that I don't have to calculate this additionally. So just basing it on body fat as well as weight seems to be the more useful way to go, as also the technology seems to be mostly based on how much fat is in there and how much other mass you have. This is also what multiple people online already have mentioned, such as Dr. Gabriel Lyon as well as Peter Attia, that it only measures basically these variables that are weight. Of course, the weight cannot be measured by a DEXA scan, for example, or does it measure the weight? I don't know. And this, well, how does your FFMI compare? I have a normalized FFMI of 19.5. I don't know what the normalization is for. The average Caucasian has apparently 18.9. Then we go 21.8 competitive power athlete. So I'm kind of I'm slightly above an average Caucasian, one could say. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger had a FFMI of 29 or something like this, or maybe it was even above 30. I don't know.